and still
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Frank Messina, Chatham of the Chatham Historical Commission, and this is the May 19th, 2020 meeting of the Historical Commission via remote participation. I have a message to read. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled on-demand viewing and for any smartphone or tablet device. If anybody else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Hearing none, we'll proceed. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law 30A 18, the Governor's March 23, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be and has been made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings or as provided for the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while it is in progress may do so by calling in on the telephone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 752-639-384 hashtag. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access and will repost the recording of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. Okay, very simply, we've done this once before, but we're going to try to do it one more time. The procedure for the meeting will be very simple. I will now call the roll of those attending. And I see Allie's already has the first application up, so just slow down, little Allie. Let me get through this. Okay, we'll do a roll call of those attending. Vice Chair Robert Lear.
I'm here.
Sandy Porter. Sandy, you have to unmute your microphone. Ms. Porter.
I'm here.
Thank you. Ben Solzinski.
Here.
Jane Moffett.
Here.
Jane is here. Donald Aikman.
Here.
Steve Burlingame.
Here.
Erica.
Here.
And Stephanie Hamilton.
Muted.
Not yet. Okay, the chairman, Frank Messina, is here. All right, we have a quorum. We have a quorum of active members. In addition, we have two alternates, Steve Burlingame and Erica. I believe, Erica, you participated in the last meeting. So, Steve, you would be a voting member in lieu of Stephanie if she continues not to show. Okay, Steve, you got that?
Gotcha.
Thank you. The process for member of the public is the alternates. Both alternates will proceed in the discussion and deliberations, but only one of the alternates would vote in the presence of an active member who is not present. So we have a quorum. Our agenda consists of effectively 4 applications and one public hearing. Reopening of a previous public hearing from 2019. So why don't we get right to it? The first application is application 20011. We're hearing that application in accordance with Chapter 158 and also in accordance with Provision 12E of the Cape Cod Commission Regional Policy for a structure in the National Register of Historic Places. So the first applicant will be presented by whom?
Frank. Bob Lear. Got me?
Yes, I do, Bob.
Before you get started, I, as you know, I'm recusing myself from these proceedings, so I'm muting myself until the end.
Okay, thank you, Robert. As such, and Erica you could participate in Bob Lear's absence? Did you get that, Erica?
Sure. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, who is presenting this application? 20011 305 Main Street.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Jamie Norcross, representing the Emerson family.
Amy, you're going to have to speak much louder.
Can you hear me better now, Mr. Chairman?
A little bit better.
Okay, hold on. Let me try to pull my device closer. Is
All
that
right.
better?
Yeah, that's a little bit better. Thank you very much.
Sure, no problem at all.
Ryan, excuse me, Ryan, can you hear that? Or Mark?
Yeah, it's coming through. It's a little
Okay,
low,
thank
but it's coming through.
All right. I'm going to ask everybody to speak up. But again, the process is technically you would only speak when you're recognized by the chair. Unfortunately, through this roll call process, it's the only way we can proceed. So, Mr. Norcross, before we begin, I just have a couple of observations. There is no formal site visit, but hopefully all of the members took an opportunity to go visit 305 Main Street. I just want to say, before we start, or before we even start, Jamie, or Mr. Norcross, you know, in looking at this application, I'm sorry, but you know, there are things missing from this application, and I would like to discuss what's missing before we even proceed. What's the application? There's no site plan, although your letter says there's a site plan. There is none submitted. There are no dimensions on the drawings. So you're putting us at a distinct disadvantage to make a thoughtful decision as it relates to the impact of this project on the National Register District, in accordance with the Cape Cod Commission, as well as within Chapter 58.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Frank, that was just Steph coming onto the phone.
All right, Steph, welcome to the meeting.
Thank
Please
you.
mic your microphone.
I don't have
Erica?
my computer. I'm on phone.
All right, just mute your phone or keep it off. And then Erica, I guess, sorry about that.
It's okay, no worries.
Mr. Norcross, can you comment on those, my observations?
I can, Mr. Messina. In terms of the site plan, I thought one had been submitted. Clearly, I guess this is sort of the byproduct of everyone trying to do everything with offices closed. So if you don't have one, again, I apologize about that.
I have one. This
Who's
is
just-
Steve, I have one.
Michelle, do you have a site plan?
You know, I went through my file and I don't see one, although Jamie, we did talk about one initially. I don't have one in the file, so I'm not sure what became of it. Frank didn't have one in his packet.
Stephen, excuse me,
Mike?
Michelle. Steve,
Yes,
are you referring to the assessor's card?
no, I'm talking about a site plan, drawn by Clark Engineering, November 26th of 2019.
Frank, this is Don. I have one also.
Well, that's interesting because I don't have one in my file, so I'm at fault here. So I'm sorry, but I don't have one in my file.
Frank, this is Sandy. I have one also.
Ally, do you have one?
Hi, Frank. I actually do have one in the file. Michelle is sharing her screen now, but if she can't find it, I can share mine to put that up.
Okay.
Ally, would you go ahead and put it up?
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'll have to do, besides myself, who else doesn't have the site plan? Could just speak up?
This is Jane. I do have it.
Okay. All
I
right, for
have it.
some reason, it was just missing from my packet then, if I,
Frank, it's Erica. I don't have it.
all right. All right, well, look, Jamie, sorry, Jamie, Mr. Norcross. The subject of dimensions, do you understand what we're talking about?
I do, Mr. Chairman, and you're correct. They are not on the plans that Steve Hart submitted. Steve is here with me in the room at a social distance, but again, I guess he can, obviously you'd prefer to have those in writing in front of you. He can try to address any questions you have on dimensions, hopefully today. And we can supplement as necessary, or as the commission feels necessary with those
Here,
dimensions.
let me just, and I apologize, Steve, please, Steve, excuse me, Jamie, we're trying to make this work, and the reason dimension drawings are important, from my perspective, is this is a contributing structure in the National Register District, okay? Your application in terms of the amount of demolition and the changes are not insignificant. We have two authorities here. One is under Chapter 158, which is a potentially 18-month demolition delay, which if we don't have to, we certainly won't, if we can find a way to indicate that what you're proposing is not diminishing the historical significance of the property. But given the percentage of the demolition, and the addition which you're looking to put on that property, and the streetscape is an issue. So I think we need to understand the visual impact. I see the drawings you've submitted, and we appreciate them in terms of, the colored drawings of what this addition could look like and your sketch of what the addition should look like. But it's very hard to determine the scale of what you're proposing and its potential impact on the existing historic structure and the streetscape. The issue here is, are we still maintaining the historical significance of the original property? And, we'll be guessing when we look at your drawings and your sketches.
Okay.
I believe I would like to ask you if we could just withdraw this application and delay it and postpone it until we can get some kind of a dimension architectural drawings of what you're proposing. Does that make sense?
If the commission feels it can't make a decision without seeing the dimensions, then, obviously we want to try and get you all the information that you need. So we'd be happy to continue. I don't know if it's at all beneficial to have at least some sort of a discussion to discuss some aspects of the project that we can relate to the commission today, to at least make some progress in terms of getting some feedback, understanding that it's subject to you being able to review the dimension drawings.
Well, I guess there's no problem if you want to provide some kind of an overview. And as long as we agree, we're going to hold off any decisions until we get some dimension drawings so we can understand the impact. So then with that understanding, sure, why don't you proceed?
Sure, I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. And again, we'll rectify the situation as quickly as we can with the drawings. As I mentioned,
Do any exist? This is Steve. Do any such drawings exist at this point?
Wait, Steve, please don't jump in. Wait till you're recognized to ask questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Steve Hart, as I mentioned earlier, is here with me in the room. So Steve, if you could address that question.
I thought we had all the dimensions. I have all the information. I thought it was given to the board about what was existing, what was proposed, the difference in the square footage. But I can get that to you again. But I thought we had submitted all of
Yeah,
that.
Mr. Hart, let me make it simple. You have a proposed drawing there, okay? And, you know, when you show what you're adding, I think at this particular point, from my perspective, it's, Ally, could you just roll back to the the first one? Thank you very much. All right. You know, the issue from my perspective, and I think for the commission, is that you're making minimal changes to the front of the house, the most historic element of the house, but you are putting a rather large addition and demolishing an existing dimension. And I think we need to understand the size and the scope of that. So you could provide those dimensions. I think it'll be helpful. If the commission makes a decision to refer this to the Cape Cod Commission, you're definitely going to need them. So I'm just trying to make things very easier here.
Sure. And we appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Norcross, did you want to proceed generally?
If I could, please.
Yes, please.
As again, Steve Hart is here with me. Two members of the Emerson family, Peter Emerson and Susan Gordon, were planning to call in. So I'm sure they are listening as well. The property is a bit of overview. The property has been in the Emerson family since 1981. During the past 40 years, it's been used for a variety of purposes, at times for vacations for the Emersons, other times for vacation rentals. Most recently, it's been used as rentals for workforce housing. Tim Emerson, who was the owner, passed away a couple years back, and Peter and Susan have been looking into ways to renovate the property, which is, I'm sure, those who have been out to the site have seen, it is in need of some work. They also want to convert the main building that is the subject of today's hearing from what had become a structure used as multiple apartments, essentially, into a true single-family dwelling. In terms of the property itself, there are a total of 3 structures on the property. There's the main house that faces Main Street. That is the subject of today's application. There's a cottage located behind the main house at the bottom of the lot, and a third dwelling that sits right on School Street. Again, the only structure that's part of today's hearing is the main building at 305 Main Street. The building, as you can see from the site plan, is in the shape of an L, with a front section that runs parallel to Main Street and a rear section that runs perpendicular to Main Street. The front section running parallel to Main Street, according to the Form B filed with the building department and the assessor's information, is circa 1840 or 1850, and as you've seen, has the classic Greek Revival design. It's unclear exactly when the rear section running perpendicular to Main Street was added to the property, but based on several factors, it appears that it was the result of multiple additions over the years. If you compare the architectural styles of the rear section to the front section, you'll note the roof pitch is flatter on the rear section and the trim work is different. In fact, the trim work is even inconsistent on the rear section itself, as one side differs from the other. The Emersons have also had a couple builders go through the house and review the manner of construction. They noted a concrete block foundation, which is more consistent with post-1900 construction, and the use of more modern nails as fasteners as opposed to wrought iron fasteners or dowels, which again seems to indicate a later date of construction for that rear portion. Finally, the layout of the interior, which again, unfortunately, you haven't had a chance to go through it, but it's really an assortment of multiple rooms on different levels with different styles that again leads you to believe that it was a result of multiple additions over the years. In working with Steve Hart, the Emerson family really felt that the historical significance and character of this structure is the front section that runs parallel to Main Street and its classic Greek Revival design. Therefore, the proposal is to restore this front section by replacing existing windows, siding, and roof shingles to match existing features. They also propose placing the structure on a new foundation and some other design additions that we can review with you. As it relates to the rear section, as you mentioned, the proposal is to demolish that section of the structure and rebuild with a design that they believe maintains the overall historical character of the structure. One section of your application asked why demolish as opposed to restore or rehabilitate. And while that was considered for the rear portion, there are several reasons why the Emersons are proposing to demolish the rear section. Again, of primary importance is that we think the portion that is significant from a historical and architectural perspective is the front section facing Main Street and not this rear section. Rebuilding the rear section allows the structure to be better used as a single-family dwelling in a manner that is really not feasible with the current design and layout of the rear section. As I mentioned, the front section is proposed to be lifted up and put on a new foundation. Currently, it's just on a very small brick foundation. Attempting to lift up the entire structure, including the rear portion, may not be feasible and increases possible damage to the front portion during such a lift. If it's helpful to the board, we can run through the specific changes that are being made to the front section.
Before you do that, Jamie,
Yes.
let me just say a couple of things quickly relative to what your presentation. This home, this structure is a contributing structure in the National Register District. When it was made a contributing structure to the National Register District, the wing that you're talking about was included. There was no exemption of that. So as far as the National Register District is concerned, as a contributing structure, they don't make a determination that, well, one was built in 1840 and the other one was built in 1900. You know, it's the complete structure. Now, an argument can be made, you know, that, well, it's deteriorated and it's falling down, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, that's not the case. It's just something that needs a little TLC and some work. So that's an issue here that we have to determine as it relates to significantly or reducing the historical significance of the contributing structure as it was made contributing at the time the National Register was decided. Quite candidly, you know, I would like to get some consult from Sarah Korjeff of the Cape Cod Commission, as it is a National Register District contributing structure. I'm not saying we're referring it. Don't say, I'm not going there. I'd like to get a consult with her, and we do this often, Jamie. You know, when we have a property in the National Register District, you know, we ask an opinion of the preservationist consultant, Ms. Korjeff, and she's very helpful in providing it. For instance, you're making changes on the front of it, which are different than were there. I'm talking about the streetscape. So, you know, we could proceed, but you just need to be cognizant of that issue.
No, I understand that. I think, again, you know, the age is obviously a question, and we understand it's probably more than 75 years and it's part of the register. I guess from an architectural aspect, it really seems the front section is what the historical.
Yes, I agree.
You know.
I agree with you.
Okay.
And if that's the case, then the general historic preservation process is if you put an addition on a significantly National Register contributing structure, it should be separate from the existing structure. So we could talk about that, and that's kind of where we want to look from a dimensions perspective.
Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I guess if you presented an overview, which I really appreciate, and I think it was very helpful, understanding what you're trying to do, I think if we can get the dimension drawings and everybody have the site plan, take a look at it, we could revisit this again, and we'll take a look at it at the next meeting, a little more detailed.
When would you want to reach out to Sarah Korjeff?
You know, that's something I can do, we can do, you can do, you know. I would suggest that, you know, and get her, and it's just an opinion, you know. Sure. And I think it would be worthwhile. And she holds a lot of weight, I believe, with the commission in the sense that she provides us a professional's point of view of what we're doing here. It's very difficult now because of the, you know, nobody's working full time, but we could still do that.
Sure, I'm happy to reach out to her.
Fine, okay, and we can do it, and I could do it also, ask her to take a look at it and give us some comments, and I think it would be helpful to the commission. So then I would just like to make a quick roll call of members of the commission, if you don't mind. If nothing more than if there are any questions relative to the process that we think we're going to set out here, we're going to reach out to Sarah Korjeff, get an opinion have her take a look at it. And the applicant's going to provide a more dimension drawing that we could look at and look at the scope. And we will reconvene at our next meeting. Michelle, when will that be?
The next meeting is June 2nd.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sure.
And if anyone has any specific questions or confusion that we could answer right now or take notes on so that we could address those as well would be helpful.
Okay. All right. Why don't we do that? Now, let me go down the list, guys. I know this is not the way we normally operate it. We usually operate in rather free flow discussion, but unfortunately we can't do that. All right. Mr. Lear has recused himself. Sandy, you have any particular questions?
I don't have
Porter?
any, I don't really have any questions at this time, but I'm staggered by the size of the addition.
Okay.
It changes, and this, how it changes the streetscape. That's
Thank
my
you
only
very much.
comment.
I'm sorry, Sandy. I stepped on your words. I apologize. Was that it, Sandy?
Yes.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the square footage of the old section is, the square footage of what's to be demolished, and the square footage of the total new building with the addition is going to be. If you could do that addition subtraction for me. I have your site plan, but I'm getting a little lost on the numbers.
The section to be demolished is 670 square feet. The proposed addition is 865 square feet.
Okay.
That's just footprint, is that correct? I'm sorry.
Yes, that's correct, Steve. It's just footprint. It doesn't include the second story.
Right.
Please don't,
okay.
please don't jump in,
And
guys.
it's on the footprint. So the footprint is going to be 100 square feet larger on the addition. Or
Roughly, yeah.
thereabouts.
Right.
Okay, because your drawings seem to show that this thing looks very, very large. Yet when I went by the site, the addition is kind of down in a hollow, so I don't know how that's gonna look. Is it height-wise? The picture, okay, so I see it's gonna be almost 2.5 stories on the addition. Because it's gonna be down low into that, for lack of a better term, the hollow.
Right, and the perspective that you see right now on the screen isn't the best in terms of the yellow area that you see is actually about 30 feet back from the front of the structure. So if you're standing in front of the house from Main Street, not all of that will be visible.
Right.
The further you go towards School Street, of course, toward the corner, the whole thing becomes more visible.
Right, but can you show the side? But it's down. The land sweeps really down there, doesn't it? Right. This is
on this side, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's going to be just as high as the other structure, but it looks more massive just because it's more organized than what's there now. I mean, when I looked at it, it didn't. This doesn't look any that much larger. This just looks together, whereas the other looks piecemeal. So, all right, that's all I have to say. So you're not really volume-wise. It's going to be larger, but you're not really increasing the footprint that much.
That's correct.
Okay.
Is that a zoning issue?
Zoning height, isn't it, Frank?
Excuse me, Ben. Jamie, is that a zoning board issue?
It is, yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, Stephanie?
Yes, I agree with Sandy. It seems like a huge addition.
All right. Jane?
I agree with both Ben and Sandy. It looks too massive for the original structure. And also, referring to what Steve Hart said about how he did the dimensions, he did them on the application, but he needs to understand that we need them on the drawings.
Okay, we got that. Thank you, Jane.
Okay,
Say hello to Reed.
he's here.
Donald?
Yeah, Frank, on the application, they show that the total square footage is 1,390 square feet. They're going to demolish 670 square feet, which is greater than 25%.
That's right.
And that triggers an awful lot in our rules and regulations.
Yeah,
But
it does trigger effectively an automatic referral unless we intercede. And that's why I was trying to be hopeful, Jamie, in reaching out to the Cape Cod Commission, their preservation consultant, Sarah Korjeff, and let her opine on your design. And I think it's going to make things a lot easier for all of us, rather than a straight referral of what you have here.
Sure. No,
we're trying to be helpful.
No,
Please.
we appreciate that.
Yeah.
but
Okay.
if I could finish,
Yes, I'm sorry, Don.
that's all right. But looking at the plans and the pictures, it's obvious that the new addition is not subservient to the historical portion. And I think in most of our considerations, we'd like to see the historical portion dominating any addition. In saying that, I totally agree that if we contact, or if Sarah Korjeff is contacted, I personally would like to be at the site visit when she comes to visit. And I'm thinking that maybe all of the historical commission members should be there.
Well, we have some issues relative to social distancing, but let's see what we can do.
We can do that, wearing masks and staying 6 feet apart.
Yeah, I would agree. This is it's in a significant location in town too. So,
Yes.
Okay, Don.
And on
Steve?
behalf of the property owner, we were disappointed we couldn't have a site visit to begin with. So we think it is helpful.
Yeah.
In understanding the project quite a bit.
Yeah. Okay, Steve?
Thank you. I have a number of concerns. I think that we've already gone over the fact that we need some drawings that will certainly give us some dimensional things and some volume changes, et cetera. But I have a quick question on the original building. There's an L to the running along the street heading easterly from the main dwelling. Was that original? That L original to the house?
You're talking about the that's perpendicular from Main Street?
It runs parallel to Main Street. That the L that runs parallel to Main Street. You have the call it the main portion of the house.
Yeah.
Is Greek Revival style, but it was common for that area to the left of the front door, that one-story L, to be original to the construction. I'm wondering if that's the case.
One-story L.
Frank? Frank?
Front.
Oh,
Please don't interrupt them.
Steve, do you know the answer to that?
Some of that was added. I don't know.
No.
But it wasn't original.
Well, look, gentlemen,
Right.
that's something, Steve, we can determine at a site visit, okay?
I
Frank?
think that's good. If I can continue with a couple other concerns, because if that is the case, not only are we putting dormers on the west side of the original building, but we're putting dormers in essentially a second floor above that L that I'm referencing, which is pretty significant in terms of its size, never mind the large addition to the back. And keeping in mind that at our last meeting, and Jamie should be aware that we reviewed an application that did not really interfere with the main portion of the building, but its wings were being expanded by some consideration or considerable amount, and it was rejected. What was rejected was a delay order imposed. So you have to be very concerned about what you're doing to that. As Don said, we'd like to see the old building, so-called, be more significant than the addition, instead of vice versa. I know there's some view concerns or considerations on that east side. You don't see it very well, but that's a 3-story building on that. So that's pretty massive. So I think that before Steve Hart does his drawings, he might talk to somebody in the office just to kind of indicate what our general concerns are, so that he will can address them as he does his drawings. But I think there's quite a change to be looked at.
I think we've given him enough hints here.
Frank, may I just say one thing? This is Steph.
Stephanie, I'm calling on you. All right,
Yeah,
go ahead, Steph.
I just want to say, I think you're looking mainly at the streetscape, and we're looking at the whole house.
All right, Steph, we have to do this by roll call, Steph. I'm sorry. All right. Steve, were you done? I'm sorry, Steve.
I'm done.
Good.
And long as we get the square footage of the addition as opposed to just the footprint.
Okay, Erica?
Hey, yeah, so yeah, I'm not gonna, I actually just wrote down a couple things. I absolutely agree with Jane and Ben about everything they said. Again, just some more detailed plans. Right off the bat, to me, it wasn't as offensive as I can see, but it is in a very important district, like you said, Frank. So I and I agree with Dawn too, that we could all maybe get together at some point, practice proper social distancing and all that, and see it. But yeah, other than that, yeah.
Okay. All right, Jamie, did we given you enough?
Yes, yes, we appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, and I think, I think we can do something here, but I think, if we would just, we don't want to take a vote now, that. And,
Right, no, I understand.
And we, we've got two things, and I think if we reach out, you reach out directly to Sarah Korjev, I will give her a heads up and send her the application and just ask her to opine. I love that word. And I guarantee you she's going to give you some helpful comments. It's not black and white.
Okay.
All right.
Frank, this is Sandy. I have a question. I'm looking at the Form B.
Sandy,
Yes.
can we just put it off unless it's really something related to it?
Well, it has to do with in the architectural significance of the building on the Form B. It mentions the exterior. It says that it has what does it say? With a wing extending to the east. So it was built, or at least when this was done, that wing was on there.
Yes, I think I made that comment at the beginning. The entire structure is a contributing structure, whether it was 1805, 1854, or 1910. It is still part of the contributing structure to the National Register District. They don't decide this piece of wood is not contributing. It's the whole structure. Okay?
Yeah.
Having said that, I guess if you would like to we all agree we're going to move off to delay. And Steph, can you make a motion to adjourn this meeting to the June 3rd?
I make a motion that we adjourn until June 3rd.
No, not adjourn. with the application.
Continue.
Continue.
Continue, excuse me.
It's okay.
Second,
Who second that?
I said it's June 2nd is the date.
Yes.
June
Oh,
2nd.
well, June 2nd. Who seconded the motion?
I'll second it.
Speak up. I need a name.
Jane,
Thank you, Jane.
I'll
Okay, I'm gonna give a roll call quickly. Sandy Porter,
Yay, yes.
Ben,
am I on?
Ben, that was a yes?
Ben?
Ben?
Yes.
Yes. Jane, yes.
Yes,
Don,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and that's it.
No, it's
Okay,
not.
and the chair votes yes, so we're continuing it to our June 2nd meeting. Mr. Hart and Jamie, thank you very much for your patience, and we're gonna work this out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate that. Next application is 20012, Chapter 158, 364 Old Harbor. Nice and simple, straightforward application.
Thorough.
Who's going to speak to the application? 364 Old Harbor. Michelle, who's presenting it?
Nigel.
Should be Nigel Brighton, the owner. Nigel, are you with us? Nigel?
Mr. Brighton? You know his phone number?
Sorry, Barkeys.
I can certainly try and reach the inn. Hang on, please.
Surely. I appreciate everybody's cooperation. I know it's difficult.
Frank, can I say something about that? I talked to the owner yesterday and she said that that's Amanda. And she said that Nigel would be there.
Yeah, we expect him. Thank you. You want to put it up, Ally?
Michelle is actually sharing her screen now.
You know, our first virtual meeting was 2.5 hours. I hope we don't repeat that.
And Frank, the last meeting went off without a hitch, I thought.
It did. It did. First time.
Frank, this is Steph speaking. I just wanted to say, when you did the roll call, you didn't call me.
Sorry, Steph.
No problem.
All right. Well, I think I called you, but I may have thought I heard somebody say yes, but
Nope.
sorry.
I made the motion.
I think I said Steph yes, and that was it. That was a mistake. I should have heard your docile tones.
Oh, yes, right.
Frank, can I say something?
Absolutely.
Uh,
Just identify yourself, please.
Okay, this is Jane talking. And I want to point out that on the application form, the address of the structure is 364 Old Chatham Road.
No,
And
I said Old Harbor. Thank you.
no, you said Old Harbor, you said it right. I'm just pointing out that on the form, it has the wrong address,
Right, right.
Oh,
just so you know.
well.
I just spoke to Amanda Brighton and she said Nigel is about to join the call now. She's not sure what happened to his connection.
Michelle,
Yes,
is the address 364 Old Harbor or Old Chatham Road?
Old Harbor Road.
Yeah, the application has the wrong address.
Oh, my heavens, I didn't even notice that. It's Old Harbor Road. I apologize. It was advertised correctly.
Yes, it was. I can just looking at that. Okay, Nigel? While we're waiting for Nigel, this is another application that pleads for administrative review.
Amen.
And Mr. Lear and myself, Michelle and Ally have begun a discussion on the process. For the public's information, while we're waiting for Nigel, just jump in if you are on.
Folks, I'm sorry, this is Nigel Brighton just joining.
Hello, Nigel. We lost you, huh? Okay, we'll start one more time. Again, this is application 20012 in accordance with Chapter 158, 364 Old Harbor Road. And the applicant is Nigel Brighton, who's on the virtual call. Nigel, I was giving you an A+ on your application.
Okay, thank you very much.
And also commenting very simply for the members of the commission and the public, this is an application or the type of application that in the future we hope to provide some kind of a more administrative review to avoid, the full hearing process. But having said all of that, why don't you just give us a quick overview of what you're proposing? Thank you.
Okay, so the chimney is not in a working order sufficiently. So we've consulted with a chimney specialist who has recommended putting in a lining, and that will necessitate increasing the size of the chimney slightly. So increasing the width from 20 inches to 24 inches, but retaining the rest of the dimensions, the same height, the same style, the same appearance. The roof has been replaced in recent years, so there would be no roofing material lost. And he's going to do as minimum damage as possible. So we're hoping that it's going to be a very straightforward process.
Thank you very much. We could run down quickly if anybody has any questions of the applicant, or if somebody feels that it's all self-explanatory and want to make some motion to proceed, I would certainly accept that. Mr. Lear?
Sorry, couldn't find the unmute button. Yeah, I'd make a motion to, first of all, reconfirm that the house is historically significant, which we did. Michelle, that was not too long ago, am I correct?
Yes, it was.
So I don't think we need to, again, say it's historically significant, but we can just say it's historically significant.
Just reaffirm, Bob. February 4th was the last time that the applicant was in front of the commission, and that was the day that you did confirm historical significance.
Okay, so I would move that the commission reconfirm the historical significance of the property and also find that the proposed work to be done dated April 22nd, 2020 will not materially diminish the historic significance of the building structure, and therefore the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
Second, Sandy? Second by Ms. Moffett. Roll call. Sandy Porter? Sandy?
Yes, I agree.
Ben? Ben? You guys got to be quicker on the draw. Ben? I'm going to skip Ben. Stephanie Hamilton?
Yes.
Jane Moffett?
Yes.
Don Aikman?
Yes.
We will not have any alternates. Vice Chair Bob Lear?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Ben, are you available? Did we lose Ben?
Frank, excuse me, it's Michelle.
Yes.
You didn't ask for a public comment. I'm not certain who is here, but
Okay, well, before we finalize it, does any member of the public wish to speak for or against the applicant? Hearing none. Did we lose Ben completely? Do we have any way to notice that, Mark, when somebody is off?
This is Ryan. Was he on a cell phone?
I don't know what he's on. He's just
I don't.
muted.
I see Ben Smolensky. He's muted. He would
Okay.
have to unmute himself.
All right, thank you, but he's still connected. All right. Having lost Ben, motion is passed. Thank you very much, Nigel. Nigel, I have one question. Did you leave yet?
Sorry, did I?
Nigel,
Yes.
I have a question for you. The fact that the chimney is painted white with the black top, does that signify that that was a home of a loyalist?
Actually, I can't answer that question for you, but
Well, I'm listening to your accent, and that's why I asked the question.
Frank, I don't have an accent. You may, but I don't.
Okay, very good. All right.
Frank, can you hear me now?
Excuse me?
Can you hear me now?
I hear you now, Ben.
Okay, all right then. I vote yes. So
What happened, Ben?
I don't know. It's I keep hitting the mute and unmute, but nothing's happening here.
All right.
And
All right. Let's carry on.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brighton. I appreciate it.
Thanks to all of you and the great work that you're doing for the town of Chatham. So
Well,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay.
Excuse me, Frank?
Yes,
Even
ma'am.
though we voted that we're renewing its historical significance, do you think we probably should take a vote
did
about
that.
no demo delay?
We did it. We included in both. We included both in the motion.
The motion combined the two things.
All right, you got to pay attention, guys. Come on. Here we go. Is everybody ready? Application 19021. Hold on a second. Application 19021, 26 Cockle Cove. This is a reopening of a public hearing which occurred in July 16th of 2019. The applicant has made a request to community development, which I guess I honored and allowed them to come back, hopefully with some new information, which would allow us to have a rehearing of the previous decision of an 18-month demolition delay. For public information, this is a property, again, 26 Cockle Cove. It is in a currently eligible National Register district. An application for the National Register designation of the property in the South Chatham Village is currently before Mass Historic. And this application was heard under Chapter 158, and a demolition delay was imposed. Speaking for the applicant, who do we have here?
Hello.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, this is Steve Clark. I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Can you Tell us why we're here.
Okay. You all have copies of the recent information I provided about this application or this appeal that I'm making. The cover letter dated March 24th that begins, I ask that you kindly consider the information enclosed. More or less explains everything that I feel has changed or lends itself to a new look at your at your prior decision. You put an 18-month delay on demolition that we have been satisfying, we've been meeting, we've been living with. In that period, briefly, there's been vandalism, there's been more damage done by nature, by wildlife. The property has been on the market for some time. It's had a good amount of interest from potential buyers, but there's absolutely no one that's interested in trying to restore what little is left that is restorable of the structures. The Board of Assessors, I'm looking at, I think you have this also in copies there to look at, dated December 10th, 2019, amended the value of the structures on the property. The assessed value is now 0. The insurance of last resort that we had on the place, Lloyd's of London, pulled the insurance in late 2018. The property is no longer insured or insurable per our agent. I think you have their letter there also, Eldridge and Lumpkin, which adds to the problem. We've boarded up the best we can, the structure. We put signs on the property. We've paid to put new padlocks on. We've paid for physical damage done by vandals. In the latest incident, they were apprehended, thankfully, at the scene by Chatham police. They appeared in court. I had to appear also, Orleans District Court. It's what I'm asking for. I guess if your 18-month period, it's been a good 10 months since that was put in place, is that we have a shorter period than 18 months because things are not getting better. Things are just getting worse. We have some potential buyers that are very interested in replacing the structures with a new home. I'm not talking about any kind of commercial development on the land. I personally would not like to see that. But everybody is turned off by the fact that there's an 18-month demolition delay and they can't do anything with the property. And I'm asking that you reconsider your initial 18-month delay. That's
Okay.
it for now.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
There is no requirement to take any action, but if we do decide to take an action, the meeting which occurred on July 16, 2019, the voting members were myself, Mr. Lear, Ben Solozinski, Sandy Porter, Don Aikman, and Stephanie. Jane, you were absent, and Erica and Steve were not appointed to the commission. So if we do have any deliberation, it'll be restricted to Frank, myself, Bob, Ben, Sandy, Don, and Steph. This goes to the same concept. If you miss a meeting, technically you're supposed to go back and redo it. and read it. And so, but
Frank,
again,
this is
if we decide to
Frank,
take action, that's how we would stipulate the discussion or the voting on the particular item. Obviously, anybody can speak in. Our process is all members, can opine. But as far as voting, that's where, if we do decide to vote. Somebody was trying to say something. Is there a quick question somewhere?
This is Steve. I believe I was at that meeting.
Uh,
I became a member in the first overall.
Yeah, I don't think you voted at the particular one. But that's the records that we currently have.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Steve?
But I certainly was at the meeting.
Okay. Well, as I said, if we decide to take it, you certainly can deliberate.
Sure.
Mr. Clark, I reread your information. I'll be honest with you personally, I was a little bit taken back of your submittal to the property tax abatement. I think you misstated or did not properly signify the process that the Historical Commission went through. But having said that, from my point, and we'll go around the table, see if people have something to say. A contributing structure in a potential National Register district, Mass Historic is currently advising it as right now relative to whether or not South Chatham will be part of the National Register district. But putting that aside, having your application stand on its own for Chapter 158, unfortunately, this is a prime example, as we refer to as demolition by benign neglect. This property has been not taken care of for many, many years. I live in the neighborhood, and have seen it deteriorate, not necessarily by vandals, but just by lack of maintenance. And that's a shame, being it's from my perspective, very historic. So at that particular, that's my view. We'll go around the room now and see if anybody's got any comments. Mr. Lear?
Yeah, well, Frank, I share your concerns that I wouldn't call it benign neglect. I'd call it deliberate neglect in order to try and get rid of the property. But, and I certainly don't want to create or reward unjust behavior. But at the same time, I understand Mr. Clark's situation about nobody's interested in buying it. Or interested in dealing with the building. I don't know that necessarily qualifies as a substantive change, because nothing's really changed since our determination. It's just remained as is and slowly deteriorating over time. So I'm a little torn between, if you will, being sympathetic and saying, you caused your own problem here. You got to live with it.
I have a question.
Sandy? Sandy?
Yes.
Comments, questions? Excuse me, we have to do roll call, guys, or else nothing will get done.
Okay. It saddens me to watch that building deteriorate. I agree with Bob that this is a situation that the owners have created themselves. However, it concerns me that there is no insurance at all on that building. And I guess I have a question for Stephen. There is no liability insurance. If I read that correctly, if the building is torn down, they will give you general liability for the property. Am I correct?
There's no insurance on the property.
Yeah. My concern is that there is no liability at all on that property. However,
let's stay to the issue of the historical preservation, please.
Well, historically, I am reluctant to change my mind.
Ben?
Yeah, I still have a question about the insurance, because this is one of the reasons why they want to change in demolition delay. And it says at the bottom where the cancellation was noted that the Massachusetts Property Insurance Underwriting Association is an insurance writer of last resort. And having done some insurance stuff in the past, I'm not sure that you can insure this property. And I don't know, have you tried, Mr. Clark, have you tried the Property Insurance Underwriting Association in Massachusetts?
I've been told, sir, that once the building is taken down, the property can be insured, yes.
But wait a minute, no, you've been told, but did you apply to this insurance association in Massachusetts?
Ben, can I
Which
ask
is-
you if this is really not germane to the issue of the demolition delay? I mean, I realize it's a interesting discussion, but
You
what
don't
else?
think it's germane, Frank, that I don't want to go in the building when I'm going to buy it to look at it because there's no insurance? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's above my pay grade. That goes to the building department and the town. It's not the historical commission's concern.
No, but Frank, I think Ben has a point that if you're going to try to get people to buy it and there's no insurance on it, they go in there, they fall through the floor, they're not going to buy it. It's part of the more neglect aspect.
Well, I hear you. Ben, anything else other than the insurance issue?
No, it's an obvious case of neglect. And I think Bob Lear mentioned it and outlined it very nicely. And it's the question is, how benign is it?
Yeah.
At any rate,
All right.
that's all I have to say. But I think the place can be insured. You can insure anything if you want to.
Stephanie? Miss Hamilton? Hi, Stephanie. All right, we're going to come back to Stephanie. Jane? Jane? Miss Moffett?
Frank,
Yes,
it's Michelle. So Jane would be part of the discussion but not voting, correct?
that's correct. Jane, any comments?
I do have a comment. I did do a site visit. I was in the hospital on July 16th, but I did see the building before, at the meeting before, and it was in bad shape. But I agree with everything that Bob said.
Thank you. Don?
Frank, I have to disagree. I don't think delaying the demolition of this property is going to do anything other than create a delay. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. So I would be in favor of lifting the demo delay.
Thank you. Steve?
I would agree with Don for a couple of reasons. I don't believe there's, my experience anyway, that there's.
Could you speak up a bit?
There's always a reason for neglect. Neglect comes about either because you can't afford to, or you've got family issues who won't participate in the cost of renovation or preservation. There's always some reason, and it's would almost never be a person who says, I'm going to intentionally let it fall into disrepair so it'll be worth less money and I will sell it for less than I would have if I had maintained it. That's preposterous. Also, I think that property, according to what I read, was built around 1925. It's historical because it's more than 50, 75 years old, but it's not a colonial building. It was not part of Chatham's early origins. It doesn't have any historic ownership or anything of that nature. And I agree that it's just falling apart. Delay is not serving a purpose at this point. And if I had the opportunity to vote, I would certainly vote to lift the delay.
Thank Erica.
So you said, Frank, I wasn't there for this. I'm trying to catch myself up here. And Frank, what year was the house built?
The house was built in the 20s, I believe. I don't have the Form B.
Okay.
There was no Form B with the application. It's built by the Clark family, and it is currently a potential contributing structure in the National Register District of the South Chatham Village.
Okay. So I wouldn't really be able to speak on it until I would like to do a site visit and all that, but yeah, I was just listening to everybody else.
Okay. All right. At this particular point, we seem to have a majority consensus not to lift the delay. If I read the numbers of those voting, being Bob Lear, Ben, Sandy, Don, Steph, and myself, I'm torn because I just am very distraught over the fact that I've seen this property for many years, and the gentleman who was living in this property, maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, it was kind of taken care of. And then after he left, the family just let it go. And I don't know if it's deliberate or benign, but certainly things could have been done. The property is owned, Steve, by the Clark family, and there are many Clarks in this town who have interest in this property, and it could have been maintained. So that's my vote. If we did have a vote, I would vote not to lift the delay. So we can do nothing.
Okay, may
Yes,
I
go
say
ahead.
something?
Yes, sir. Who's
Yes.
speaking?
This is Steve Clark.
Yes, Mr. Clark.
I'm the trustee of my mother's trust. I'm not copping out as far as responsibility goes. I am responsible because I am the trustee of the estate. My late brother lived in the house for many, 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 many years, never did any kind of maintenance at all that I know of, unless you have information that I don't know. I wasn't always in touch with him. He died. He died a number of years ago, and it was more than 8 or 9 years ago. And nobody has lived there since. The trust is going through a contentious time with relatives. There's been, I'm not shifting the blame to anyone, but there's been no coming together of understanding. I personally have tried over the years to rally some kind of interest from my other relatives involved in the estate to restore the place, to do something to sell perhaps a portion of the property, to use that money to reinvest and fix up what's left of the property. And I've been told by them repeatedly that it should be torn down. They weren't interested. They could do nothing and had no desire to do anything. I alone don't have the resources. And if I were a young man, I would probably, I don't know what I would do, but I'm not a young man, and I'm just doing the best I can to get the estate settled and to get all of this behind me. It pains me deeply. It really, really does to see the condition of that house. I grew up in that house. I have precious memories of my childhood every summer living in that house. And I would do things like paint and garden, and I'm also an abutter as well, because I live just diagonally across the street in another property, and I see it every day, so I'm aware. I've done what I can with my limited resources to replace locks, to hire somebody to do something that I'm unable to do to keep the place as secure as possible. Paying to have the lawns mowed, paying to have different things done, as much as I possibly can. I personally don't feel that it has been deliberate neglect on my part. Time and circumstance and other issues that one of your members addressed in his decision to not keep the delay in place spoke very well to what's going on in my case. I respect your decision. If you decide to keep the delay in order, fine, so be it. I'm not here to fight or argue. I'm just speaking as honestly and as I can about the matter, and I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. And I hate to use the word deliberate, because knowing the Clark family, there's a lot of Clarks around here, and the fact that this property, was allowed to become where it is just unfortunate. So I guess at this particular point, we could either move on or someone can make a motion.
Frank and Ston,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to, considering the fact that the Historical Commission has never been a punitive group, I would like to make a motion that we lift the demo delay.
I'll second that, Don. That's Steph.
That was Steph?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion before the floor to lift the 18-month demolition delay. Okay? Any member of the public want to speak for or against this motion?
Yes, I'd like to speak. My name is Jack Neepsey. My driveway is directly across the street from this property. I have owned this house for over 50 years, my house, and I've been observing that property for 50 years, the last 25 of which the house has been neglected. It is an attractive nuisance. There was, for a long period of time, there was 4 dozen feral cats living in the property that had to be removed by the animal control officer. The house is to say it's unattractive is an understatement. It is deteriorating the values of the rest of the properties around it on Cockle Cove Road. As I said, it's an attractive nuisance. You've already heard that people have been breaking into the house and vandalizing it. It is an ice. There are one of 2 outcomes that are going to happen here. Either you're going to vote to continue the delay and the house will continue to be an attractive nuisance and it will finally be torn down, or B, you can be charitable and humane and allow the house to be torn down now and save the neighbors from a lot of time and trouble.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nisi, could you just give your address so we have it for the record?
35 Cockle Cove Road.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else wish to speak for or against the application or the motion? Okay, we'll take a roll call.
Ben Smolensky, I'm in favor of Don's motion.
All right, well, let me take the roll call, Ben. I'm sorry. I appreciate you jumping in. Well, we have a motion made by Don. Stephanie, you second the motion?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Mr. Lear?
When I started out, I think I said I was torn between sympathy and punishing bad behavior. And I'm still torn, but I do agree with the neighbor and with Don that there's not much worth in continuing the delay because it's not helping anybody. So I'll go along with lifting it.
Okay. Ben?
Lift the delay.
Sandy?
Lift the delay.
And Steph?
Lift the delay.
And the chairman abstains.
Chicken.
The chairman abstains because I can't, in my heart of hearts, Mr. Nisi and Jack, vote to demolish something which is about to be put on the National Register of Historic Places. There's a lot of good reasons why this happened, and That's the reason for my abstention. So the motion passes, and effectively, as of today, the demolition delay is lifted. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, gentlemen and
Thank-
ladies. We have a couple of quick things that I wanted to discuss just to bring everybody up to speed. You have in your packet the status of the demolition delays. I'm going to speak to 68 Shell, Shell Drive, which demolition expires in July 8th. Well, let me speak to it now very simply. There is a new deal on the table, if you will, for the purchase. The purchase and sale agreement has been signed by a purchaser of 68 Shell Drive. He is working very hard with the myself, representing the Historical Commission, and the Nickerson Family Association to potentially, if the house gets demolished after the delay expires in July, to save the 1,700 William Nickerson's Jr.'s portion of the house and move it into the Nickerson Family Foundation. It's just the beginning of a long process, as we're aware of it. Have we moved other historic houses? But there's hopefully light at the end of the tunnel, and the town of Chatham might be able to save its oldest house. I think the oldest house. So that's just, stay tuned on that. That's where we are. It's very positive at the present time. Other than that, nothing new on 233 Seaview. Cockle Cove we just disposed of. 157 Cross Street, I believe they have been advertising for that, move that property.
Frank, it's Bob. Could I ask a question about 157 Cross Street? My recollection is we were concerned, not so much, well, somewhat about the demolition, but what might be put up there in its place. And we got some assurances that it would be another quaint Cape Cod type of building. My question is, do we know anything about what's proposed? Has there been any proposal as to what to put there?
Michelle, can you add anything to that?
I have not seen anything at all.
Well, 157 has been advertised, correct?
Yes, I did just come across advertising information. I added it to the file. I don't know that we've seen anything of the proposed new dwelling.
So for the public's information, there's a beautiful little cottage at 157 Cross Street. I believe the developer is Palimas and Savory. If you're looking for a nice house, well maintained and excellent shape. Okay, moving on. I have been in contact, at least attempted to contact Mass Historic Commission to find out the status of the National Register designation of the Monomoy Theater property, 776 Main Street. I have not had a response yet, nor have I gotten a response relative to the status of the South Chatham Village, status of its National Register designation. And that's why I guess I couldn't vote to demolish 26 Cockle Cove. Okay, which was the anchor of the South Chatham Village. Having said that, I've listed the issues which are on hold, which hopefully when things slow down with the COVID-19, we'll get back in the saddle again on our zoning bylaw with Ally and to enhance historic preservation. The archaeological survey of the cemeteries, Mr. Burlingame, the Form Es, and update of the townwide historical survey with Eric, with Mr. Chartier. And hopefully we'll get that done to add both the Nickerson family dig and the Atwood the Atwood home dig. That's all I have. Any member of the board have anything they wish to add to? Hearing none, any member of the public wish to speak on any application or any item that was on the agenda? Hearing none, I would like to have a motion to
I
adjourn.
move that we adjourn.
I second, Steph.
Okay, we need a roll call on the adjournment. Mr. Lear,
Yes, sir.
Sandy? Miss Porter? She left early. Ben?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
I think that's it. If we didn't have Sandy,
How does the chairman vote?
the chairman will vote yes as soon as I get Sandy to respond, but no response.
We don't need her. It's all right.
Be careful about that. Gentlemen and ladies, I would ask next week or next time we meet, try to sign in at least 10 minutes early so we can work out the kinks. And I appreciate your patience and consideration, and like to thank Ally and Mark and Ryan and of course the one and only Michelle.
Yes, Michelle.
Thank Michelle.
I was gonna say, shout out to Michelle and Ally, definitely.
Okay, well, all right, Mark, I guess we're done unless you cut us off already.